This video is going to explain how I created the Vintage Bicycle Girl quilt in Electric Quilt. And I have started by creating a new project called Vintage Bicycle Girl 2. And I now want to actually import my image of the vintage girl. And to do that, I'm going to actually work on the work table section called Work on Image. And this is probably the least used of the tabs in the work table, so I thought it might be useful to spend a little time here. Anyway, now that I'm in Work on Image, I've got to import my image. So if I go to the Image tab, I can import image. And I had previously saved this on my desktop, so I will scroll down, find it, and here is the vintage girl with bicycle, so I'm going to open it. And you can see it opens to about 5.5 by 5 inches. Now, I know when I print this, I'm going to be printing it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so this is a little bit small. So my next step is going to really be to resize the image. And so there, under image, there's an image resize. And it says the width is 5.6 and the height is 5.2. Let's bring the height up to 8 inches, and I think that's going to be pretty good to work with. And because the maintain aspect ratio is checked, it adjusts the width at the same time. So I'll click on OK. And now I actually want to, when you go up to the image, I can add it to the sketchbook, but I can also add it to sketchbook as fabric, and that's actually what I want to do at this point. Okay. Next step is I need to actually create a quilt. So I'm going to go to the Work on Quilt section, and it looks like you've got the standard layout, but I think we're going to want something a little bit differently. So I'm going to start Quilt, New Quilt. I still do want a horizontal, but I think my layout is going to be 3 blocks and 1 vertical. And my height, if you recall, I was going to work with about 8 inches. And I think the width, when I figured it out, is probably going to be about 2.5 inches. So I'm going to, and again, you can adjust some of this later, but it was at least a good way to get started. Now I do want to put some sashing, as you probably saw in my example. And I'm going to actually set this at 1/2 inch, which is pretty narrow, but I want my window panes to look narrow, and frankly it's a little easier to play with the fabric, the actual fabric, when I take care of seam allowances if I work with that size. Okay. Now I need a border, and I think my first border, I'm just going to make that the same 1/2 inch that I did the sashing. And then I want to add a 1 inch border, and I want to add a 1.5 inch border. So I think that's a pretty good layout. Okay, I am now ready to start filling in with fabrics on my project. So to do this, go to Layer 1, and you'll want to pick up the paintbrush, which will open the sketchbook. And I'm just going to start coloring, and because I'm recreating this, I've pretty much decided on my fabrics, and I actually just loaded the fabrics that I wanted to use into my sketchbook. Okay, now when you do look at the sketchbook, you don't see the vintage girl, but if I hover over this first one here, you can see it's a vintage girl with bicycle. And so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on my 3 windows. and it's not giving me quite what I want because it's just giving me the beginning of the spoke. So what I'm going to need to do is actually use the fussy cut button, which is this red button down here. If you don't have it on the toolbar, you can definitely add that. But once I've selected the tool, you can see that I can move the fabric, and you can see the other pieces of the fabric show up as I move that. So the first one actually probably was pretty good with that first wheel, and then I'm going to play with the other two. So again, I'm trying to create sort of a continuous looking pattern here, and I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to actually save that in the sketchbook now. Now, if you looked at my original project, you also saw that I had put some flying geese in, so let's go ahead and create that. To do that, I'm going to go to Work on Block, and I'm going to start over here. So I'm going to start by using the grid, and I'm going to set it up for 1 column by 4 rows, and that will bisect my block. And now I'm going to use the pencil to just add the geese in. So it's really just a snap from one point to the center to the other point. And then I'm going to color, and I'll use the spray can for the rest, and I will now add that to the sketchbook, and I'm going to go back and now work on quilt. Now for this, I do want to make sure that I've got snap block position to grid clicked, and I'm going to actually go into my preferences, and for setting blocks I want to change the size because I know that my flying geese units, I want them to be 2 by 1 inch, and so I'm just going to change that, and I'm going to go to layer 2 now and select block, and I'm going to pull this in, and it comes in at 2 by 1, so I'm going to close that. I do need to rotate this. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now if you use the adjust tool and click on the block, I can move this into position. And again, it snaps because I have turned on snap block position to grid. So now if I want to copy it, again in the adjust, I can do Control C, Control V, and I will rotate the block. And I do need to resize this so it's 1 by 2. And now that should be able to be pulled into place right there. Now I'm going to copy that again and copy that again. I'm going to rotate both of those. And I will use the adjust tool to move those into place. And I think that looks pretty good. So at this point I will save the project by adding it to the sketchbook. And I now have my EQ project ready to go. Thanks for watching.